right, guys, we have some breaking news. It appears that Qatari diplomats have died in a car accident on their way to this international peace summit, which is scheduled for Monday. Is this suspicious? I am going to show you an incident that happened years ago, which does raise red flags. Let's go ahead and get into it. Again, the story kind of snuck through over the weekend. It says here from Voice from the East, a delegation of employees from the Qatari Foreign Ministry accompanying the Prime Minister of Qatar in Sharm el Sheikh was involved in a fatal accident. 4 dead so far. Let's go ahead and show you the picture here. Diplomats here. A lot of people are asking questions about this. Voice from the East said, and before the rumors start, no, it's not Mossad. That's a real car accident. But wait till I show you some of the responses from the Zionists, which make it very concerning. The car from the scene of the accident. So here is the vehicle. Here it looks like a Mercedes van. Let's go ahead and get into the article here from Middle East Monitor. At this point, it was just 3 that were killed. 3 Qatari diplomats killed in a car crash in Egypt. Let's get into the story, folks, and I'll tell you why Egypt is important here. 3 Qatari diplomats were killed and 2 others were injured in a car crash in the Egyptian Red Sea city of Sharm el Sheikh, according to an official statement. Qatar's embassy in Cairo said that the U.S. social media company X, that Emiri Dewan, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names, Emiri Dewan members Saad bin Thamar al Thani, Abdullah al Hanim al Karan, and Hassan Jabir lost their lives in a traffic accident while performing their official duties. Now, what many people are pointing to is the fact that this is happening while they were on their way to this international, and I say peace with quotations because you guys know how I feel about all this international peace summit, which is scheduled for Monday. At the same time, for Sunday, the hostages are supposed to be released. There's a lot of things that are happening right now in the Middle East, and some people are asking questions. Was this an actual accident or was it sabotage? We can only just point back to a couple of weeks ago where Israel implemented a strike in Qatar to try to hit Hamas leaders who went to meet with Qatar for these negotiation talks. And so we talked about that. We talked about how, the air defenses were not in place when that happened. And I told you I thought the U.S. was completely behind this, and I thought Qatar may have been behind this as well. It was just a little too convenient. Now we see that Qatari diplomats have now been killed in this car accident on their way to this international peace summit. And it does raise alarm bells. Like, people are asking, like, what is going on here? Is this just a coincidence? Is it just an accident? Let's continue on here. 2 other Dewan members, Abdullah and Muhammad, were injured in the accident and transferred to Sharm el Sheikh International Hospital for medical care. I believe one of them has now passed on. I think it's 4 of them now. The embassy added that deceased and injured diplomats will be transported to Doha aboard a Qatari plane today, expressing gratitude to Egyptian authorities for their cooperation, care, and attention in following up on this incident and providing the necessary facilitation. Now, according to Egypt's state-run Al Kahari News, the accident was caused by a steering wheel malfunction. A steering wheel malfunction. This is a Mercedes van, right? So we're not to say that those things can't happen. They can happen, but it's just all a little too convenient. And I do wonder, Mercedes, great company, high quality vehicles. I question. I question. I could understand if maybe it was like a Kia, right? Because Kia is not high quality automobiles, but Mercedes. I don't know, guys. Let's continue on. Sharm el Sheikh will host an international peace summit on Monday to be co-chaired by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and his American counterpart, Donald Trump, with the attendance of more than 20 countries. So again, like I said, it's just the timing of it all is kind of weird. The summit seeks to end the war in the Gaza Strip, enhances efforts to bring peace and stability to the Middle East, and usher in a new phase of regional security and stability. That's according to the Egyptian presidential statement. Trump announced Wednesday that Israel and Hamas agreed to the first phase of the 20-point plan he laid out on September 29th to bring a ceasefire to Gaza, release all Israeli captives being held there in exchange for 2,000 Palestinian hostages. I'm going to correct you there, not prisoners, and a gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from the entire Gaza Strip. The first phase of the deal came into force at noon on Friday. The second phase calls for the plan to establish a new governing mechanism in Gaza without Hamas participation, the formation of a security force compromising Palestinians and troops from Arab and Islamic countries, and the disarmament of Hamas. So again, their numbers here aren't even correct when it comes to the deaths as well. So let's get into this a little bit more, ladies and gentlemen. I saw this post here from a Zionist account, and this is what gives me pause. And I just want to show you this for a second. This is from Edie Cohen. God delays but does not neglect. What do you think that means, huh? Posted this picture here and put X's on the diplomats that died. Again, like I can't make this up. Like the disgusting, the disgusting rhetoric, the disgusting behavior, cheering on the death of these diplomats. Who does that? Who does that, folks? And this is one of the reasons why people are like, whoa. They continue to expose themselves. So this is where we're at now, ladies and gentlemen, cheering it on. And again, I want to remind you, Qatar is basically a U.S. outpost. Qatar is an ally of the United States. And if, as much as Trump and every government official says Israel is our greatest ally or whatever, well, here is Israel cheering on the death of Qatari diplomats. And Qatar is an ally of the United States. But of course, Trump isn't going to call that out. These are questions people need to start asking, folks. Professor Morandi saw this tweet and commented, and he said, Zionists immediately, after Qatari and Turkish officials embraced their genocidal counterparts. All 4 Qatari diplomats were killed, murdered when their Mercedes van steering malfunctioned. Again, who cheers this on? So I want to show you something that happened before. It was years ago, an Egyptian scientist, similar situation. That scientist's name was Samia, let's pull her up here, Samira Musa. Now, the long history of suspicious deaths of Egyptian nuclear scientists. So again, I'm just putting all the pieces together, not making this up, but I find it very weird because it reminds me of what happened to Samira. So let's go on here a little bit. Maybe I can make this a little bit larger because the font's kind of okay. On August 5th, 1952, a car came to pick up Samira Musa in Berkeley, California. The driver opened the door for the world-renowned scientist, who was the first ever female Egyptian nuclear scientist. The 35-year-old was the first woman to earn a doctorate in atomic radiation and the first woman to hold a teaching post at Cairo University, thanks to her groundbreaking PhD in atomic radiation in the 1940s. Listen to what happened. Musa sat in the back seat as they left the city and headed along the California coast. She had completed her research and was preparing to return to Egypt, but she had received an invitation for dinner. Driving along the curved cliffs of the Pacific coast, the car suddenly swerved and plummeted 40 feet over the edge, killing her immediately. The driver jumped from the car just before the fall and later disappeared, and the invitation she received to California turned out to be fake. Let me say this part again. After she was killed immediately, the driver jumped from the car just before the fall and later disappeared. And the invitation she received to the California event turned out to be fake. Samira Musa, a lot of people don't know about this story, I think, but this is just one of several. And that's why when I heard this story, the Qatari story, I was like, this kind of sounds a little similar. There's more. The death of the brilliant young physicist is shrouded in mystery. While no one knows for sure what happened, some suspect that she was targeted by the Mossad. Again, while no one knows for sure what happened, some suspect that was targeted by Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, to prevent Egypt from acquiring knowledge of nuclear technology, though it has never claimed responsibility. Now, if this sounds a little bit familiar, what you hear Israel saying about Iran and developing these nuclear capabilities. At one point, Israel had issue with Egypt trying to develop any type of nuclear technology. And I'm just thinking about this car accident. And if it wasn't for the attack that happened in Qatari from Israel, if it wasn't for this event, which is scheduled for Monday, that they were heading to, maybe I would not be as suspicious. But the fact that the timing of all of this is what makes me wonder. Let's go on a little bit more. This was hardly the last time that nuclear and other weapon scientists met an unfortunate end. June 13th, 1980, Yahya Mashad, another Egyptian physicist who was in charge of Iraq's nuclear program, arrived in France to test the fuel for the reactor. The morning he was to return home, a maid entered his Paris hotel room and found that he had been stabbed multiple times and bludgeoned to death. The last person known to have seen the scientist the previous night, a prostitute who called herself Marie Express, was killed a few weeks later by a speeding car, not long after her preliminary statement. The car and culprit were never found. Over the next several months, 2 more Iraqi nuclear scientists died under mysterious circumstances while outside of the country in separate poisoning incidents. Again, although it was not determined who was responsible, some people accuse Mossad. So this thing about the nuclear scientists, don't forget Israel killed some of Iran's scientists. And the diplomats, the Qatari diplomats, may not have been scientists, but I'm just putting all the pieces together. These are things that people may not be aware of. So there's history behind this. Here's another one. In another incident in July 14th, 1989, Said Badar, an Egyptian microwave scientist, fell to his death from a balcony in Alexandria, Egypt. Just 1 month before he died, Badar had left his research position at a West German university. Before his return to Egypt, he told colleagues of fears that he was under surveillance and reported that his apartment had been searched and documents and computer files were taken. The Egyptian police report listed his death as unalive. We got to say it that way here on YouTube. Via asphyxiation and slashing of the wrists and from the fall. His family disputed the findings. Badar was an internationally recognized scientist and had spent years researching microwave circuitry. The field has application and development of satellite technology and missile guidance systems. These are just some examples, ladies and gentlemen. But the incident with Samira Musa is the one that really stands out. So, I'm waiting to see what the U.S. government is going to say about this, if they even speak on it. I just find this to be all very curious. You guys know how I feel about this so-called peace deal. This is not a peace deal. I'm very concerned for what is going to happen after this. Yes, Palestinians have made the long trek home. I saw the march that was happening, but I don't trust Israel. People are saying that they are now already rebuilding roads in Gaza. I just wonder if that's going to be for the Palestinian people. I just don't trust any of it. Israel has already laid out their Greater Israel plan. That includes them taking over Gaza. So while I'm not here to say people shouldn't be happy that Palestinians are able to go back home, I mean, they have to rebuild their homes. There's nothing left. I want people to be very cautious, because at the end of the day, I don't trust Israel, and I don't trust the U.S. government to, in the end, do the right thing. So I think we all need to be just paying close attention to things that are happening, including something like this car accident of these Qatari diplomats. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.